At the heart of effective school leadership is the principal's ability to manage instruction, handle complex, ever-changing environments, lead reforms that enable sustained system improvements and students' achievements. I am Tanisha Ingleton, Director Principal at the National College for Educational Leadership, and it is my distinct pleasure to be sharing with you in this virtual graduation exercise for the 6th cohort of the Aspiring Principals program offered by the NCL under the theme Resilient Leadership, Navigating an Unprecedented Era. Let me acknowledge the presence of Honorable Favour Williams, Minister of Education, Youth and Information, Honorable Robert Morgan, State Minister in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, Dr. Grace McLean, Acting Permanent Secretary, Dr. Kassan Troop, Acting Chief Education Officer, Mrs. Maureen Dwyer, Chairperson of the NCL's Steering Committee, members of the ministry's senior management team, and other officials of the ministry, its departments and agencies. Reverend Craig Mears, Assistant Clergy, St. Andrew Parish Church, Mr. Jasper Gabriel, President of the Jamaica Teachers Association, Dr. Marcia Rainford, Director, School of Education, awardees, specially invited guests, the NCL team, and all our viewers online. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information is cognizant of the fact that teacher development, school and student performance are heavily dependent on the quality of our school leaders. To this end, the National College for Educational Leadership was established in 2011 to develop excellent leadership in Jamaica's public schools and supporting institutions through the design and implementation of a suite of competency-based, contextually relevant and purposeful programs for school and system leaders. Given this fact, the college, in collaboration with the School of Education and the Mona School of Business at the University of the West Indies, launched the Aspiring Principals program in 2014. The Aspiring Principals program is geared towards preparing aspiring leaders for the august role of principalship. Since its inception, we have prepared 563 aspirants who were exposed to critical leadership modules, which include instructional leadership, community leadership, transformational leadership, and organizational leadership, and who were equipped with skills and competencies to transform schools and advance students' outcomes. Of the 5 previous cohorts who have successfully completed the program, over 140 persons have accessed the principalship in varying schools across the island. Continuing on this path of success, in 2019, the NCL assembled participants in the Aspiring Principals program who became the 6th cohort of which our graduates are part. Colleagues, regardless of the pandemic, they have maintained their focus, remained purposeful and committed as they were exposed to the theoretical constructs and professional development sessions which targeted their interviewing skills, etiquette and decorum, public speaking, and academic writing. Additionally, our participants were rigorously prepared to undertake a 12-week field experience which required them to demonstrate leadership competencies that they have acquired and or needed to have developed prior to the assumption of the post of principalship. Colleagues, this ceremony is about the success of our participants. Throughout the program today, you will hear more about the journey, the impact, and the participants' perspectives on the Aspiring Principals program. Your presence here at this graduation is indeed signaling your affirmed leadership competence, and it serves to concretize your commitment to nation building, effective instructional leadership, and heightened students' outcomes. Colleagues, Your presence here today solidifies the desire that we have as educators to make meaningful contributions to enable the realization of Sustainable Development Goal number 4. Graduates, the fact that you were chosen to be a participant suggests that you have the rudiments of greatness within you. The fact that you have completed suggests that you are resilient. I encourage you to remain focused, to be diligent, and to understand that you are endowed with the spirit of excellence and the requisite skills and competencies to impact the lives of our children and our schools, one child at a time.
Let us pray. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Gracious God, we give you thanks for this day, for the opportunity to come together in a virtual space, yet still to come together and to give you thanks for what this organization has accomplished and what our participants have received. As we navigated this pandemic that has affected all areas of our lives, including this program, we thank you for those who've kept the journey, for those who've remained faithful, and for those families who have supported them in their loneliest and lonely of times. Bless these proceedings, we ask you, Father. Grant that our sharing and our listening may be to your glory, that leaving from here today we may be renewed and recharged for serving in your vineyard. Bless those who've participated in this program, that they may give to the sector that is so needing of their time and energy, that which is needed to transform our education and to reclaim our youths at this time. Be with us, we beseech you, Father, that we may hear you and respond, that we may feel you and be called to obedience. This we ask through Jesus Christ our Lord. Amen.
It is with great pleasure that I represent fellow graduates of the Aspiring Principals Program, Cohort 6. We are the only cohort to have journeyed with the NCEL for such an extended period. We persevered and we overcame, resilient leaders who navigated an unprecedented era. Scripture reading from the epistles of Paul the Apostle, Philippians 3 verse 13 to 15 and Galatians 6 verse 9. Reading from the New International Version. Brothers and sisters, I do not consider myself yet to have taken hold of it, but one thing I do, forgetting what is behind and straining toward what is ahead, I press on toward the goal to win the prize for which God has called me heavenward in Christ Jesus. All of us then who are mature should take such a view of things. And if on some point you think differently, that too God will make clear to you. Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up. The word of the Lord.
Now that we have invited God's presence, we will hear from our acting permanent secretary, Dr. Grace McLean, who will bring the welcome and remarks.
Dr. Tanisha Ingleton, Director Principal for the National College for Educational Leadership and Moderator. The Honorable Favour Williams, Minister of Education, Youth and Information. The Honorable Robert Nestor Morgan, State Minister in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Mrs. Maureen Dwyer, Chair for the National College for Educational Leadership's Steering Committee. Dr. Casson Troop, our Chief Education Officer, acting. Members of the Ministry's Senior Management Team and other officials of the Ministry's agencies, departments, and entities. Reverend Father Craig Mears, Assistant Clergy, St. Andrew Parish Church. Mr. Jasford Gabriel, President of the Jamaica Teachers Association. Dr. Marcia Rainford, Director, School of Education, University of the West Indies, Mono. Awardees, specially invited guests, the NCEL team, our viewers online. I am delighted to join you for the graduation ceremony of Cohort 6 of the Aspiring Principals program. My heartiest congratulations to you who have managed to complete the program amid the upheavals of the last year. This graduation is being conducted in a virtual format, reflective of the challenges and opportunities that the COVID-19 has presented, and has provided ample demonstration of the flexibility we will need to exercise as we move forward. My graduates, while all of you may have joined the profession at different times, you will all have a common experience of entering our schools, and many changes in instructional delivery, administration, and public expectation will be for you to take. I am sure you would also have gained useful insights from your colleagues as well as from your instructors and facilitators. No doubt, some of you have been impacted by COVID in your own lives. Your studies may have been disrupted, and you have always had to adjust to homeschool learning. So my heartiest congratulations to you for your determination in completing your program of training. For all of us, ladies and gentlemen, COVID-19 has underscored the importance of preparing our students for a more uncertain and volatile future. We know that education is not just about equipping them with academic knowledge to pass examinations, but importantly, it's about instilling competencies and values to guide them through life and to enable them to become self-directed, lifelong learners. We have also seen the importance of having a flexible approach to delivering the content of what we want to impart. The closure, ladies and gentlemen, of most of our schools saw our students adapting to new routines and new ways of learning. This has not been easy, and for many, it has been a test of their discipline, self-confidence, and problem-solving skills. As we focus today on Cohort 6, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information has seen the tremendous transformation that has taken place within our institutions, led by principals who have been prepared through NCEL. The Ministry of Education, Youth and Information extends its heartiest congratulations to the graduates as well as the NCEL team. May the Lord continue to bless you all.
Thank you so much, Dr. Grace McLean, our Acting Permanent Secretary, for your continued support of the National College for Educational Leadership. 89 participants were successful in the Aspiring Principals program. Of the 89 participants, 2 participants were selected for their innovative interventions. At this time, we're going to hear from our first participant, Mr. Clavia McFarlane, an aspirant with the Montego Bay Cohort. His intervention is titled Utility Arborist Training Program.
Before starting the Aspiring Principals program, I wasn't that confident. I was lacking in certain knowledge in terms of school leadership, and I was not exposed in terms of professional development, the way I report myself, the way how I communicate with others. Having completed the Aspiring Principals program, my experience can be summed up in 3 words: transformative, insightful, and authentic. I'm better able to identify and solve problems within the organization. I'm better able to use data as a decision-making tool. I'm better able to work with individuals through communication. And I can tell you this, before enrolling in the program, even in my classes, 95% Patois. When I say me a chacha boy, and 5% standard English. I wasn't confident, but now based on this intervention and based on the Aspiring Principal program, I'm able to demonstrate standard English in a fluent manner. So I see that as a great improvement. The nature of my intervention is Utility Arborist Competency Training, or UACT. A utility arborist is a person who manages, control, or mitigate trees around utility resources, such as light wires or light poles. Vegetation around utility resources can cause a power surge. At Knockout Polytechnic College, we usually experience 3 to 6 outages per day, unplanned outages. It disrupts the teaching and learning process, especially when you are using the IT lab. It also causes damage to electrical appliances, and also increase fuel costs because we have to operate the generator once there's a power outage. Finally, your students doing the associate degree in general agriculture were trained to be utility arborists. Students were exposed to 6 modules: public speaking, occupational health and safety, introduction to basic electrical technology, proposal and contract, and introduction to arboriculture. At the end of this intervention, students were placed in groups where they were to develop a strategy how JPS could use to mitigate and control vegetation around utility resources around the country of Jamaica. At the end of this, students would be certified and they would earn an 8-week internship program with JPS. This intervention was in keeping with the school's culture. It's an agricultural institution. However, we mixed agriculture with another field of engineering. Females were able to use the power saw and climb trees, use all the resources. So it speaks to gender equality. It also appeals to the 21st century learner. 3 students gained internship with a subcontractor with JPS. At the end of that internship, 1 student was gainfully employed. Knockout Polytechnic College benefited also greatly, as this was in keeping with the school's vision. A model facility providing a diverse and dynamic training that equips trainees with the necessary skills so they can survive in a rapidly changing world. And this is diverse and dynamic. A curriculum was added to the Knockout Polytechnic College, and we also forged a partnership with JPS and some other subcontractors with the hope of pursuing new partnerships.
Here to bring greetings are Dr. Marcia Rainford, Director of the School of Education, and Mr. Jasford Gabriel, President of the Jamaica Teachers Association.
I wish to express warm greetings to all those persons online and participating in this virtual staging of the Aspiring Principals Program graduation ceremony for the 6th successive cohort. Let me acknowledge also the presence of Honorable Favour Williams and Honorable Robert Morgan, Minister and State Minister in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information respectively, Dr. Grace McLean, our Acting Permanent Secretary, Mrs. Maureen Dwyer, Chair, NSEL's Steering Committee, Dr. Kassan Troop, Acting Chief Education Officer, and Mr. Jasford Gabriel, President of the Jamaica Teachers Association. Of course, the awardees this year, all 89 of you, and our hardworking NSEL team led by Dr. Tanisha Ingleton, Director, Principal of NSEL. It is an honor and a privilege for me to be asked to participate in this function in recognition of a group of educators who can also consider themselves privileged, having been specially selected to participate in and have successfully completed the Aspiring Principals program. You may not agree with me, but I submit that because of this experience, you will likely be at the head of the queue for appointment as principal or vice principal when next such an opportunity becomes available. So, as director of the School of Education, I bring you greetings and will endeavor to use this privilege responsibly and propose 3 important challenges for you. If I were to take a poll of your thoughts now, one of the words that would likely dominate the list is success. As a society, we have defined success primarily in terms of students' academic performance or the performing arts or in sports. My first challenge, therefore, is to dare you to rethink what success as an outcome of schooling should look like, as I don't think that the aforementioned criteria are adequate to ensure the type of citizen that we need for Jamaica to become the place of choice to live, work, raise families, and do business. One characteristic of a successful leader is the ability to inspire, and so as leaders, you have the privilege to inspire your students. I therefore encourage you to consider success in terms of inspiring students towards changing behavior, to develop a kinder, gentler society with respect for the environment and value for truth. We need to inspire a generation to change how we treat each other, how we think of each other, how we respond to conflict and treat with the environment. We must change how we dispose of garbage in our daily routines, how we treat public and private property, and how we respond to truth. We need to inspire a generation to demonstrate respect for self and others, not only because of the authority they wield, but also just because they are human beings. There are implications here for how we present ourselves to them, our students, whether as haughty or humble, whether we demonstrate draconian leadership or leadership that is understanding, respectful, and caring, and whether we are honest or dishonest. I urge you to embrace this first challenge, as we can all recall a case in which we were inspired by a teacher, and that has changed how we think and we operate. My second challenge is for you to see yourselves and the institutions that you will lead as active participants in initial and ongoing teacher professional preparation and professional development, recognizing that schools are the laboratories in which beginning and pre-trained teachers hone and perfect their craft, and that it takes time and requires positive role models and mentors. When you enter your institutions to serve as leaders, therefore, you have a responsibility to facilitate teacher professional development. Be willing to facilitate, engage, and support teachers in training. Ensure that when they are assigned to your institutions, they are not given students that even experienced teachers can't control. Give them the leverage to implement strategies that facilitate hands-on and minds-on learning, and for goodness sake, allow them to try something different. Do not stifle their initiative. Support your teachers who wish to do in-service training and make room for them to share what they have learned. Encourage and value their contribution, as your institution is just another link in the chain of teacher professional development. My third and easiest challenge is for you to see the School of Education as a partner to whom you may turn for assistance for the development of best practices and research, and as the first choice for further educational engagements. I dare not abuse my privileged position, and so as I close, let me congratulate my colleagues at NCEL for the delivery of the APP program, and you for your successful completion of the program. Walk good, and I wish you continued success.
It's such an absolute delight of mine to be sharing in this virtual graduation exercise. Dr. Tanisha Ingleton, Director Principal, National College for Educational Leadership. Honorable Favour Williams, Minister of Education, Youth and Information. Honorable Robert Morgan, State Minister in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Dr. Grace McLean, Permanent Secretary, Acting, Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Mrs. Maureen Dwyer, Chair, NCEL's Steering Committee. Dr. Kassan Troop, Chief Education Officer, Acting, Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Members of the ministry's senior management team and other officials of the ministry, its departments and agencies. Dr. Marcia Rainford, Director, School of Education, UWI Mona. Awardees, specially invited guests, the NCEL team, and members of the media. The Jamaica Teachers Association is proud to be celebrating with all 89 participants of Cohort 6 who have demonstrated the requisite determination, skills, and competencies in completing the Aspiring Principals program. In this, the 10th year of its existence, I commend the National College of Education and Leadership for your resilience and determination in continuing to create world-class leaders in education despite the myriad of challenges brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. Dr. Ingleton and team, you have successfully continued the rich tradition of offering cutting-edge leadership development in the midst of ongoing challenges. Colleagues, I can share from my own experience as my own leadership has been positively impacted through NCEL, having successfully completed the program and subsequently enrolled as a member of the Executive Principals League. I can therefore appreciate the magnitude of your achievement and express heartfelt congratulations to you. The modules I completed and the collaborative atmosphere went a far way in reshaping my educational leadership perspectives and redounded to the immediate benefit of all stakeholders, as well as the overall improvement of the educational institution I serve. Undoubtedly, opportunities are already presented for you to utilize the training you have received to positively advance the educational experiences of the nation's children. Despite not necessarily having the opportunity to function in the role of a principal just yet, you have wisely embraced the philosophy that it's better to be prepared for an opportunity that didn't come than to be unprepared when the opportunity comes. The worldwide dislocation in education requires, now more than ever, that especially school leaders be on the cutting edge of innovations and emotional intelligence. It is against this background that the JTA has embarked on the theme promoting digital transformation and positive values and attitudes, imperatives for redefining 21st century education as the theme for the 2020-21 conference year. I am convinced that the modules you have completed at the postgraduate level, including transformational leadership, instructional leadership, community leadership, and organizational leadership, among others, have not only broadened your repertoire, but instilled the confidence required to navigate the challenging educational landscape. Now more than ever, every child needs a champion. As you go forth in confidence and optimism, I encourage you to always remember the words of John Maxwell. The best indication of how well you have run a race is how well you have helped others to run. Can I repeat? And I quote, the best indication of how well you have run a race is how well you have helped others to run. End quote. You are therefore strategically positioned to impact lives for eternity. When we consider, 1, the value of this ongoing training to personal development and national educational advancement, 2, the intense and dedicated effort required to successfully complete this program, and 3, the need to attract and retain our best leaders in the field of education, the Jamaica Teachers Association believes that the time has come to incentivize the attainment of the NCEL qualification. I am confident that favorable consideration will be given to this idea. Again, I congratulate you, colleagues, and encourage the National College of Education and Leadership to continue to provide strategic initiatives to improve leadership and facilitate the creation of world-class educational leaders. The JTA is on board. Let us continue to unite and serve.
Since 2011, the National College for Educational Leadership has been effectively preparing educational leaders to assume varying roles. Now, NCEL, in collaboration with the US School of Education, has just concluded the 6th cohort of the Aspiring Principals program. Now, here to share a reflection is Dadrian Smith of Kellitz Primary. Thanks for joining us, Dadrian Smith, educator of 16 years. So let's look at your experience with the program, from recruitment to the different sessions and the field engagement. How was that for you?
Well, can I tell you, the recruitment exercise was very rigorous.
Was it?
Yes. I remember going home with my friend and driving home, and we thought that we did not make it at all, because we got, I think it was a case study that we were given. It's the first in history that I was going to an interview and was given a case. And you had to dissect the case and then put forward solutions to the problems that were identified. Luckily, at the Kellitz Primary School, where I am a teacher, my principal is very inclusive. And so some of the prescriptions then, I was fair with them. So I was able to answer, but I still did not feel as though I had gotten my foot in the door. And so we waited.
And waited.
And we waited. And then the email came and it said, congratulations, you have been selected. And I said, yes. We got through, we went through all the processes involved. We went through a very wonderful orientation where we were charged to go forward and to do our best. And that we did. When it came on to the module.
Right, because getting in is one part, and you get that sense of relief when you said, yes, you've done enough to get through, but the modular engagement now is where it really comes to, what needs to be done.
And I think kudos to the instructors, because even though we were interacting with substantial course material, they delivered in such a way that we were able to leave each module feeling as though, yes, we were making headways, we were learning, and we were not only learning for the post of principalship, but we were learning things that we could integrate now in the positions that we occupy. The instructors, and I keep on referring to them, wonderful people who, again, it comes back to people-centeredness, and they were very kind to us.
So you spoke about some of the lessons you would have learned from the program. Would you say that all of that has come together to prepare you for the post of principalship effectively?
Well, I think the 4 modules, community leadership, transformational leadership, organizational leadership, and instructional leadership, they were designed and they were delivered to prepare us for the principalship. All of us who would have gone through that program, we would have been given an arsenal of strategies to go out and do the job and to do it well. And that was what those 4 modules did for us. And the icing on the cake would have been the intervention, the field experience, where we were fully immersed in being conceptualizers, being implementers, where we were coordinators. All of these are roles of the principal in the 21st century. We saw where our educational system, as we know it, has been transformed. We were used to 4 walls. Now we're online. We're operating in the virtual space. What caused all of this? Innovation. And I think that the course called us, begged us to be creators, to be innovators, to break the mold, right? To lift the bar, to jump the bar, to not be satisfied with standard, but to dream bigger bigger than what is already there.
So you've gone through the entire program, you've had ups and downs, and your experience is now complete, the end. What do you have to say to the members of your cohort?
Well done. Congratulations. You have been certified and you are qualified for the post of principalship. Go and make your mark in the world. Light up Jamaica and the world, one school at a time. Transform education as we know it, one school at a time. Remember that your legacy is not a gazebo that you would have constructed or television sets that you would have installed, but your legacy is going to be the way that you would impact the lives of your students.
Well said. Well said, and all the very best.
Thank you so much.
Adrian Smith, Kellett's Primary Aspiring Principals Program through NSEL.
Honorable Favour Williams, Minister of Education, Youth and Information. Honorable Robert Morgan, State Minister in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Dr. Grace McLean, Permanent Secretary Acting, Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Mrs. Maureen Dwyer, Chair of NSEL Steering Committee. Dr. Cassan Troop, Chief Education Officer Acting. Members of the ministry's senior management team and other officials of the ministry, its departments and agencies. Reverend Father Craig Mears, Assistant Clergy at the St. Andrew Parish Church. Mr. Jasford Gabriel, President of the Jamaica Teachers Association. Dr. Marcia Rainford, Director of the School of Education, UWI, Mona. Awardees, specially invited guests, the NSEL team, and our online viewers. It is with great pleasure and pride that I stand here today to congratulate Cohort 6 of our Aspiring Principals program. For our aspiring principals, this was no easy journey. They had to cross over the recruitment process, which we affectionately call the Red Sea. They had to trod through the modular engagement, which we call the wilderness. They had to wander through field implementation, which was a desert plagued with the COVID-19 virus. And just when they thought the excitement was over, they had to swim through the defense, which we are calling their Jordan River. Ladies and gentlemen, each milestone was fraught with challenges, but they were designed to mold, render, and refine. These, our principal aspirants, were brought through the fire to come forth as pure gold. Today, I would like to briefly take you through each step. For our graduates, it's going to be somewhat of a distant memory, but for their families and well-wishers, it gives a chance for them to walk a mile in their shoes. So our principal aspirants, they have to go through different stages in order to get to where they are today. The first stage is called the recruitment process. The recruitment process, ladies and gentlemen, is very competitive and it's highly structured. It's not really easy to get into the program because we have to do the processing of the applications. We have to do a first round of listing, and then they go through a case study which involves a speed interview in order to effectively cross the Red Sea. Now, the application processing is that process that we use to verify their qualifications and experience. We read their essays documenting their call to leadership. We read recommendations from supervisors and other referees. We comb through their appraisals. We verify their JTC license. And ladies and gentlemen, yes, we do admire their photographs. We look at the faces of these innocent colleagues who have no clue about the journey that they're about to embark. And we say a prayer for them. Participants who have met these requirements would have passed through the outer courts. Now it's time for what we call their briefing and commitment check. For this activity, the participants are invited to a day-long process where we provide a brief overview of the components of the journey. We brief them about the wilderness of modular engagement, the desert of field implementation, and their Jordan called the defense. We then provide for them a spirited, cautionary, and transparent lecture on the promises and pitfalls of leadership. And this is always led by Dr. Ingleton, where she asks them repeatedly, is the principalship for you? Is the principalship for you? All our cohort participants indicated that the principalship was for them. And so we were able to move them on to the next stage where they were given a case study. Now, the case study used real-life challenges faced in schools. It's an opportunity for us to test the aspirants' critical thinking and problem-solving skills, as well as their potential for systems thinking, which we believe is a crucial aspect to the chair of principalship. They then undergo a speed interview. Here we test their tenacity, their poise, their posture under pressure. We test also their ability to communicate processes and solutions while at the same time connecting with the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, policies and procedures. For our aspirants who complete this process successfully, they would have crossed the Red Sea. And so we would say they crossed it. We take them through an orientation. This orientation is designed to equip them with the necessary tools and refreshments that are required to navigate this crucial journey. They are introduced to their master facilitators and their compassionate taskmasters. They're given maps to chart their journey. They're given strategies to avoid traps and plans of the enemy. Ladies and gentlemen, they're given the whole armor in order to stand against challenges they will face on the journey. We ensure that they enter into the wilderness of modular engagement fully prepared. Now, after the orientation, we take them through the modular engagement. Here they are able to participate in lessons on 4 different modules: community leadership, instructional leadership, organizational leadership, and transformational leadership. Our principal aspirants attended classes on weekends for approximately 9 months, with just brief breaks in between modules. It was really no easy journey for them through this wilderness. It was full of assignments and group activities and out-of-class engagements. Our principal aspirants had to dig deep into their arsenal of tools in order to remain afloat during this portion of the journey. But the NCEL team cheered them on every step of the journey. And so, as part of the modular engagement, Cohort 6 received complimentary professional development sessions, including one on the ministry's policy priorities. They did one on academic writing, public speaking, and interviewing skills. So Cohort 6 ended this part of the journey with a fierce determination to complete the feat. They were alive and well. But now they had to survive the next phase of the journey, ladies and gentlemen, which was not very easy at all. They now had to move on to the field experience. The field experience was designed so that principal aspirants could identify challenges in their school and design a comprehensive plan of action where they have to skillfully interweave contents of the modules that they completed. Again, the NCEL team provided them with some support during this phase. We hosted a seminar that was designed to introduce the design thinking process, which undergirds that particular part of the journey. Now, we looked at the 6-phase design thinking approach, where we taught them to empathize. In other words, come to a full understanding of the problems or the challenges that exist in their school. Next, they had to define the problem. After defining the problem, they had to, what we call, ideate. They have to come up with ideas. They have to create a prototype before testing it and implementing it in their schools. The NCEL team armed them with the tools that they needed to undertake all of these activities. But ladies and gentlemen, at the time of the seminar, we knew not of the pestilence waiting to upend the strides that they had already made on the journey. COVID-19 hit. And the typical 12-week experience was unceremoniously cut short to 10 weeks. The NCEL team had to huddle and to strategize a way forward. We had to Maslow before we bloomed. So eventually, we designed a combination of extensions and alternative assessments, which provided a way out for Cohort 6. And by this time, they were all itching to move on. And by the grace of God, we experienced a satisfactory completion rate, with most of the cohort moving on to the next step of the journey, which is the Jordan, called the defense. Ladies and gentlemen, the defense was no easy stop. This is the final activity, and it included experienced gatekeepers. These were retired and practicing principals, education officers, university lecturers, and persons from industry. It starts with the review of portfolio, where we look at the rationale, the nature of their intervention. We look at the data that they collected. We look at the way they analyzed the data. We look at the impact of intervention. We looked at their reflection on their activities, their sustainability planning, their ability to make the connection between their projects and the modules. And nothing misses the eyes of these gatekeepers, ladies and gentlemen. They look at the organization of the portfolios, their compliance with APA, they look at everything. And so participants who are able to pass through this phase of the defense, usually we would say kudos to them. And then they will have to do the presentation. We look at the content of their presentation, we look at their eloquence, their ability to respond to questions, and to engage the panelists during presentations. Again, nothing misses the eye of the gatekeepers. Yes, they look at dress, they look at posture, they look at poise during the interrogation process. They look at everything. And so, ladies and gentlemen, our Cohort 6 graduates, they reflect a picture of endurance, resilience, perseverance, tenacity, stamina, persistence, determination, and commitment. We are very proud of them, and we encourage them to maintain high standards always. My principal aspirants, do not let down your guard. The road to principalship was not easy, And when you get to your destination, you will find even greater challenges to navigate. I urge you to stand tall, stay strong, and press on. There will be a sequel, and you have to be ready. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Dr. McLaughlin has indicated, she has shared with us the unique experiences of our participants. My colleagues, you now have a very good idea of what it took for our participants to be here today. It is a pleasure to introduce to you our keynote speaker, Honorable Favour Williams, Minister of Education. Minister Williams is a chartered financial analyst by profession. She has an MBA with concentration in finance from the Wharton Business School at the University of Pennsylvania and a BA in economics from Harvard University in Cambridge, Massachusetts. Minister Williams was elected Member of Parliament for St. Andrew Eastern in the recent general election and was the former Executive Director of Kingston Properties Limited. Prior to Kingston Properties, Mrs. Williams served as Chief Investment Officer of JMMB Limited from March 2005 to September 2007 with investment responsibilities spanning the trading department, investment research, and pensions. Her investment work spanned a broad cross-section of industries. She also had portfolio management responsibilities for an equity portfolio product and led Putman's efforts to incubate a market-neutral hedge fund. Minister Williams' investment experience also includes approximately 5 years as Vice President at Wellington Management Company in Boston. Colleagues, Minister Williams also gained experience at the Equitable Real Estate Investment Management in Chicago, Illinois. Having served at the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service, Minister Williams comes to the Ministry of Education with a wealth of experience spanning various management positions. My colleagues, please make welcome the Honorable Favour Williams, Minister of Education, Youth and Information.
Honorable Robert Morgan, State Minister, Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Dr. Grace McLean, Acting Permanent Secretary. Dr. Casson Troop, Acting Chief Education Officer. Members of the Ministry's senior management team and other officials of the Ministry, its departments and agencies. Reverend Craig Mayers, Assistant Clergy, St. Andrew Parish Church. Mr. Jasford Gabriel, President of the Jamaica Teachers Association. Dr. Marcia Rainford, Director, School of Education, UWI Mona. Awardees, specially invited guests, the NCEL team, and our viewers online. First, may I express my appreciation to Dr. Ingleton and the team at NCEL for the opportunity to participate in this ceremony. May I also extend heartiest congratulations to participants comprising Cohort 6 of this Aspiring Principals program. Professional development programs such as the APP are critical to the continued improvement in our schools, administration, and ultimately educational outcomes. This is also another important capacity building program, not only for those who will eventually assume leadership as school principals, but participants will have been enabled to strengthen and improve on what you do now, to the overall benefit of your institutions and for the children we serve collectively. NCEL's objective of ensuring that appointed principals assume their duties with a broader preparation for school management is well grounded in the experience that while many individuals are good classroom teachers, their administrative and management skills may not be enough for the enormous task that is involved in being effective principals. A number of studies have concluded that teachers have the most immediate in-school effect on student success. There's also growing agreement that with the desire to have every child succeed, it is the principal who is best positioned to ensure that teaching and learning are as good as they can be throughout the entire school, especially those with the highest needs. Within this context, there's also more support for the concept of school leadership that is trainable and more likely to bring about the results that are needed in today's schools. This includes a school-wide focus on better teaching and learning, led by dedicated, well-prepared individuals who know how to create a vision, share authority, and are accountable for achieving the school's goals. Today's principal, therefore, is not only an instructional leader, but also a CEO overseeing multi-million-dollar budgets, and in some cases, scores of employees. They have to work with community organizations and the media, and are expected to serve as change agents. At the same time, the principal is responsible for building a school culture focused on learning and high expectations. The principal must hire good instructors, provide quality professional development, evaluate teachers, and serve as the school's instructional leader. The job of today's school leaders have clearly changed dramatically in a way that would suggest that formal preparation programs based in higher educational institutions do not adequately prepare those holding these jobs to meet the competing demands of the 21st century. Added to that, when you have the unforeseen, such as the disruption caused by COVID-19, you have to add flexibility, responsiveness, and creativity to lead their teams through times of crises. The APP therefore serves as an opportunity to prepare participants for the multiple roles they will have to play. That means that your professional qualification for principalship, PQP, is not just another piece of paper, but would signify an important additional level of preparation for leadership. Let me therefore commend the NCEL team again for your commitment to this program, and to you, the participants, for enrolling and sticking with the project. Congratulations and best wishes for the future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Minister Williams, for your keynote address. Indeed, I agree with you that the job of today's leaders has clearly changed dramatically, and that the Aspirant Principals program serves as that opportunity to prepare school leaders to navigate the existing and emerging challenges in this unprecedented era. With your support, we will continue to ensure that all school leaders are performing at their best. With that said, we will now hear from our second participant, whose intervention was selected for its innovation and impactfulness.
When I just started NCEL, I saw the things that I would encounter at school as to be challenges. But at NCEL, they're saying to you, if you're going to be a change agent, you cannot see it as a challenge, but you have to see it as an opportunity. From day one, I realized that it was indeed a game changer as to the approach that NCEL took in executing the material. It was very experiential, and I'm that kind of a learner. So I really gravitated towards it. There was a lot of collaboration, and you get to network with so many persons. So it was really a good gelling. There was synergy in the group. You learn to understand persons because they're all strong personalities. So it's somehow prepared you for the real workplace, what you would encounter. I remember the first class I had, the first course, it was about reflection. And I have taken that lesson and it has transformed how I do everything I do, because if we don't reflect, then we cannot really move forward with any view to improve. We have to reflect. Finishing the course is one thing, but the impact would have started from I started doing the course, because you had to do work from school, so you had to be working with teachers just the same. So the impact was a process. Now I think I'm wiser as it relates to the analysis of data. I think I used to just jump and take the data and run with it, but now I'm pooling. Talk about the triangulation of data, I now understand how to really incorporate that. So I think now I'm data wiser, and I understand my role now in terms of what my function is. I have to effect change. The field intervention concerns induction of teachers. It is dubbed Teachers Supporting Teachers. It is not something new, because it would have been something that the Jamaica Teaching Council has been encouraging for years. Even the Ministry of Education has been wanting us to do it, but I kind of put a different spin to it because times are changing. We looked at the results from the NEI report, which would have stated that we needed to give more support to teachers in terms of the teaching and learning. When I looked into the school improvement plan, we had already decided that, look, we have to do some more mentoring, more monitoring, and more motivating of the teachers. And so it kind of fit nicely. So although you're doing your professional development with the other members of staff, the new teachers coming in, their needs vary. They're coming from Teachers College, some are coming from other schools, some would have been at home not teaching for years, and you employ them. When they come with a lot of baggages, right? Good practices, bad practices. We want to really perpetuate the good practices. And so it is a learning situation where it's not that the teacher guides that I have are just inputting, but there's a sharing. So while that is happening, you're building camaraderie among the staff, and you find that in years to come, you'll be changing the culture. When I spoke with the principal, because luckily he is also a part of NCEL, so he understood the vision and he was able to communicate the vision to the senior members of staff. So there was buy-in, we both spoke to them about it. They got the idea, and then he was able now to run with that with the new members of staff, right? So he started the culturing of the teachers. From an organizational point of view, in terms of leadership, you would have looked at the data and your resources. So the human resource came in and the data was there, because schools are filled with data. So we gelled the data, which informed what the principal decided to do from the organizational leadership. And then of course, if you're changing culture, you're talking about the community. That was critical to what we were doing, because it's the change to a culture of achievement. The instructional leadership aspect of it has to do with how we dealt with the pedagogical skills of the teacher, and you can't do any training with teachers without including the pedagogy. When I met with the new teachers, they were in for it. So out of 11 teachers, 9 came to what we would have had as sessions, and so we got together, the committee was formulated, persons were given their responsibilities. We established an accountability framework. So, things were in place that were structured. We had that, so that was our action plan then. And then there was a reporting mechanism. So the program went well in terms of the training. COVID came, kind of put a halt to things. But what we realized was that the impact of it based on the teachers' comments, it was commendable, and the senior teachers would have said that they saw a difference in how the teachers were approaching their work. So what we did was we said, okay, the principal gave his stamp of approval and said, this is definitely something I want. So now for sustainability, we're now developing the policy to be passed on to the board for ratification. Now, since COVID, what do? The teachers, we're not seeing them. We don't even know the new teachers. So we developed a site in the Google Workspace that teachers can go to get information. And we see that as an opportunity to really impact change yet again. So COVID was a challenge for us initially, but you turn it into an opportunity for change.
According to Blair, Roof, and Timmins, building, nurturing, and facilitating leadership capacity enriches the ability of all major stakeholders to participate in an institution's capacity for broad-based participation in leadership activities. Everyone has a voice. Hierarchies become flat, and leadership is distributed. In April 2019, a group of educators commenced the journey towards principalship. Today, under the theme, Resilient Leadership, Navigating an Unprecedented Era, we celebrate and affirm 89 aspirants in Cohort 6 of the Aspiring Principals Program. This is the first batch of aspiring leaders to complete the program amid the many challenges of a global pandemic. They have been resilient and tenacious, embodying a spirit of dedication and reaffirming their commitment to quality education regardless of the challenges that may arise. Ladies and gentlemen, the names of the participants that will be called are today awarded the professional qualification for principalship. Without further ado, here are the awardees. Sharifa Allen, Andrea Allen, Dorian Allen Rainford, Vivia Anderson Myrie, Helena Anderson Main, Simone Beecher Wright, Nyron Beeput, Ricardo Benjamin, Delia Brown Dawson, Althea Campbell, Pixie Campbell Cole, Shakon Chambers, Vergita Clark Davis, Joan Clark Forbes, Shernette Clark Tomlinson, Rohan Coburn, Vernice Coburn, O'Dane Dempster, Gavin DeRizio, Erica Dobbs Utah, Denise Dunchi, Judine Ebanks Bowes, Lyndon Edwards, Shawla Edwards Braham, Simone Edwards Lawrence, Doreen Evans Brown, Kwesi Kari Fisher Roberts, Marsha Ford Bryan, Keisha Ford Walker, Karen Goburn, Shanake Gordon, Theonia Graham, Tanya Graham, Antoinette Gray, Christopher Green, Jashette Green, Tamika Gray Rodney, Ansley Harris, Kadeen Haynes Williams, Nikisha Henlon Sterling, Hilaraine Henry, Maria Isaacs Wasom, Kareen James Barnett, Charmaine Johnson. Hyacinth Johnson. Marvin Johnson. Winsome Johnson.
Ladies and gentlemen, as we continue to award our prestigious participants of the Professional Qualification for Principalship, we cannot overemphasize this august cohort that has navigated and conquered the unknown during these unprecedented times. The journey was longer than expected, 2018 to 2021. And they have shown that 21st century leadership must be agile. Their determination to stay on task and stand victorious will never be forgotten. Ladies and gentlemen, I present you with the remaining graduates of our successful Cohort 6. Shelly-Ann Kelly, Shernette King Nicholas, Merdina Latti Johnson, Damian Lawrence, Carleen Lewin MacDonald, Charmaine Lloyd, Vinette Malcolm, Ingrid Malcolm Mackenzie, Yvonne Mamar Tafarai, Nicola Mattis Allen, Clavia McFarlane, Colette McLean Harding, Trudy Ann Miller, Leska Miller, Kirk Moore, Ricardo Morgan, Stacy Otti Clark, Andrea Peru, Tracy Ann Pinnock, Tanisha Pusey, Marsha Richardson Edwards, Gaffrey Robinson, Norda Roy, Yolanda Scarlett, Janelle Smith, Dadrian Smith, Zonette Smith, Karen Smith White, Valentine Spencer, Julene Stevenson, Lucien Suba, Antoinette Swaby, Andrea Thompson, Elizabeth Thompson Samuels, Garfield Tolo, Vinton Vaz, Octavia Waite, Tyrone White, Marsha Williams, Michelle Williamson, Tabitha Williamson, Sian Wilson. Awards for outstanding performance. Throughout the program, a number of participants have demonstrated outstanding performances in the respective modules and have culminated the program with the field experience by mobilizing, transforming, impacting, and nurturing change in their schools. In light of this, these participants will be acknowledged. For transformational leadership, Shanna K. Gordon, Kingston Group, Kwesi Kari Fisher Roberts, Montego Bay Group. Instructional leadership, Yvonne Mama Tafarai, Elizabeth Thompson Samuels, Sian Wilson, Kingston Group, Charmaine Lloyd, Montego Bay Group. For organizational leadership, Kingston Group, Marvin Johnson, Damian Lawrence, Yvonne Mama Tafari, Garfield Cholo, Sian Wilson, Montego Bedu, O'Dane Dempster, Kwesi Kari Fisher Roberts, Charmaine Johnson, Dadrian Smith. For the module on community leadership, Pixie Campbell Cole, Erica Dobbs Utah, Doreen Evans Brown, Karen Smith White, Lynette Malcolm, Montego Bay Group. For the field experience module, Yvonne Mama Tafara, Kingston Group, Judine Ebanks Bowles, Montego Bay Group.
Effective leadership is demonstrable, and this is indeed what the field experience of the Aspiring Principals program seeks to unearth, enhance, and cultivate. Participants in the Aspiring Principals program have to prove that they have the dispositions, competences, knowledge, stick-to-itiveness, and zeal to lead sustained transformational initiatives and programs in their schools. The National College for Educational Leadership ensures that participants, prior to being awarded the professional qualification for principalship, are assessed on a transformative intervention they would have carried out. To evaluate the strengths, weaknesses, sustainability, relevance, and impact on student outcomes, teams of assessors were assembled. The following individuals are being recognized today for their expertise, sound judgment, time, and dedication, and unwavering support to the National College for Educational Leadership in assessing and certifying the graduates. The NCL expresses gratitude to the following individuals. Ms. Tristan Brown, graduate of the Aspiring Principals program and educator at Meadowbrook High School. Mrs. Hazel Cameron, principal, Clancarthy High. Ms. Monique Castle, graduate of the Aspiring Principals program and teacher educator, Church Teachers College. Dr. Christopher Clark, education consultant and retired principal, Shortwood Teachers College. Mr. Deron Davidson, teacher educator, Sam Sharp Teachers College. Mrs. Marcia Detrifogo, retired principal, Jesse Pole Primary School. Dr. Dossett Edwards Watson, principal, Trenchtown Polytechnic College. Mr. Kevin Facey, graduate of the Aspiring Principals program and principal of Meadowbrook High School. Mrs. Winsome Francis, facilitator in the APP and vice principal at St. Joseph's Teachers College. Mr. George Good, graduate of the Aspiring Principals program and principal of Old Harbor Primary School. Mrs. Joan Gordon Shaw, education officer, the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Dr. Lorna Gow Morrison, facilitator and principal at Sam Sharp Teachers College. Mr. Paul Hall, graduate of the Aspiring Principals program and principal at Tarrant High School. Mr. Darian Henry, graduate of the Aspiring Principals program and principal at Cumberland High School. Ms. Violette Hunter, retired education officer, Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Mrs. Raquel Hyman Mitchell, accounting officer, National College for Educational Leadership. Mrs. Janice Jalal, graduate of the Aspiring Principals program and principal at Dembe High School. Mr. Ricardo Kennedy, education officer at the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Mrs. Sandra Knight Edwards, graduate of the Aspiring Principals program and vice principal at Fogo Road High. Mrs. Angela Lafayette Thompson, graduate of the Aspiring Principals Program and Vice Principal at Edith Dalton James High. Mr. Omar Largi, graduate of the Aspiring Principals Program and Vice Principal, Penwood High School. Mr. Adlai Lewis, Principal, Seaside Primary School. Ms. Roxanne Loveless, Education Officer, Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Professor Burma D. Briscoe, Associate Professor at the Michael University College. Mrs. Camille Michael Patterson, Programs Officer at the National College for Educational Leadership. Mrs. Patricia Mumbelela, Education Officer at the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Mr. Philando Neal, Programs Officer at the National College for Educational Leadership. Mr. Andrew Pitkin, Assistant Registrar in the Independent Schools Unit at the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Mrs. Pauline Reed, Principal, Nakalva Polytechnic College. Mrs. Molly Russell, Retired Education Officer, Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Mr. Jamie Russell, Programs Officer, National College for Educational Leadership. Mr. Andrew Silburn, CEO of People HR Advisory. Mrs. Ramonia Smith Hamilton, Education Officer at the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Mr. O'Neill Stevens, graduate of the Aspiring Principals Program and Principal of Jesse Repole Primary School. Mrs. Laverne Stewart, Principal, Anchovy High. Mr. Everton Tyndale, graduate of the Aspiring Principals Program and Principal of Porus Infant School. Mr. Sean Wade, Management and Legal Analyst in the Transformation Implementation Unit of the Ministry of Finance and Public Service. Ms. Tarian Wallace, Senior Monitoring and Evaluation Officer at the National College for Educational Leadership. Dr. Joanne Williams, Education Officer at the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. And Mrs. Maureen Wong, Education Officer at the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the graduates and special awardees for Cohort 6 of the Aspiring Principals Program. I would also like to express sincere gratitude to the NCEL team members, specifically Mr. Shima Rankin and Mr. Troy McKetty, Records and Documentation Officers, and Ms. Monique Kelly, Programs Administrator. Thank you.
Wow, that was such a delight to see. We are so grateful, we are so proud of our participants to know that even in this pandemic, you were able to do so well. Congratulations to all of you on your special awards.
Let's take a look at the Aspiring Principals Program journey through the lens of Lyndon Edwards from Southborough Primary. So let's talk about that journey. How was this program for you?
Well, thank you for having me. The first thing is that I must say the journey has been rewarding and fulfilling. There are several experiences and opportunities that I am very thankful for. In my summary, I see this journey as an eclectic blend of exposure to visionary leadership, impactful learning experiences, as well as practical scenarios for success.
Would you say it's adequately prepared you to assume the post of principalship?
Adequately prepared. In fact, when you look at the models that we reviewed, they were spot on as it relates to the job of the principal in the institution, as well as in the different aspects and responsibilities that are required of the principal.
What are some of the lessons learned from this program that really stood out to you?
I can remember our very first experience in the module 1, Transformational Leadership. And we were reminded that as principals, we must take stock of the issues that affect not just the institution, but all those that are within the confines of the institution. I say, for instance, the process of what is referred to as an environmental scanning. Know about your environment.
understanding what the focus is. The social issues, the environmental issues, the economic issues. All of this will help you to manage and carefully discharge your duties as a principal in the position of leadership.
So we're in a pandemic, which has shown us that things can change in an instant. How do you think the Aspiring Principals program has prepared you for such a drastic change in education, especially as an educational leader?
The Blue Ocean strategy is one that we are beneficiaries of, and we would have demonstrated this in the execution of our field experience. I say to you, there's not a challenge too great for us. We know how to adapt, when to adapt. We also are considered to be resilient leaders, and we are demonstrating this today because we did not allow the pandemic to stall our progress. Instead, we moved forward and we made a difference.
So you were able to put in place some of what you learned from this program to help your staff members to adapt essentially. So let's talk about the program. What was the engagement like? How did you find the NSEL team and things from the start? Walk me through it.
The recruitment was a rigorous exercise, but rewarding. I remember the very first day of interview. There was hardly any space for persons to sit, let alone stand. And that for me told me that this particular program required the best of the best, the creme de la creme. I remember feelings of intrepidity and anxiety. Would I be selected? There are so many of us.
It was that tough?
It was. So many of us were intimidated. And I remember at one point I had to hold tight to one of our Garvey quotes, which says, confidence in self. Had to be confident throughout that entire experience. It was rich, a rich experience, because you found that we had so many different schools represented in the space. You had so much to learn from each other. It wasn't just the facilitators who were the source or brought to us the content for delivery, but we benefited from the experience of others. And that practical exposure would have served as the ideal recipe for us to take to our individual schools and to make a difference. I remember an instance where we had an assignment, and in our groups we had a deliberation. Someone had to be the principal. I know for one, the job of the principal was that role that attracted the most marks. So naturally, I tried to shy away from this post. But my group members, they believed that I was the one fitting for the post. And so on the day, I remembered it clearly. Cold sweat, nervousness. We had Professor Ying. There was no room for error. I had to be exceptional in my delivery. For me, that was a life-changing moment. I knew the weight of the performance that I had to deliver was not just on me, I was carrying a team. So my performance would have impacted them. So I had to give of my best in every way possible, and that I did.
All right, so let's talk a little bit now about the field experience. I hear that this may be one of the most challenging parts of the program where most persons tend to be a little apprehensive about it. What was that like for you? How did you find it?
Cumbersome, tiring, but I can tell you, I was touched throughout the entire experience. I did an intervention to reach out to students deemed at risk. And I didn't just focus on boys, I focused on both boys and girls at the lower primary level. I recognize that many times when interventions are done, it doesn't capture the grassroots of what we would identify as a problem. I can even make the connection with one of the participants in my intervention. This particular child was one who is prone not to just be disruptive, but is always shy at sharing and explaining. But this child, having benefited from the intervention, is now one of the persons who is most active in the online learning experience. In fact, the teacher has to beg him to give others a chance because he's now more confident than ever. It was indeed a meaningful and rewarding experience.
So definitely you would have applied all of what you acquired through the Aspiring Principals program and definitely put into that to ensure that you have a more fulsome outcome. So you've come to the end of the program. What do you have to say to your colleagues from Cohort 6?
Congratulations, colleagues. You have earned your PQP. Go forth and demonstrate all that you would have acquired. Remember, we have a duty as a group to ensure that UN Strategic Development Goal number 4 is secured: inclusive and equitable quality education for all. NCEL has given us a toolkit for success. And if you need another anchor, you can find that anchor in 2 Timothy 1, verse 7. For God has not given us a spirit of fear, but of power and of love and of a sound mind.
Profound words there, Mr. Lyndon Edwards. No fear in Cohort 6. Perseverance inbuilt in your DNA. Thank you for sharing your reflection with us. Lyndon Edwards from Southborough Primary School.
We have come to the end of this wonderful celebration of excellence. The Jamaica education system now has 89 new aspirants who are equipped with the skills and competencies to lead transformation in our schools. At this time, we're going to be hearing from Mr. Gavin Derisio, who will be delivering the vote of thanks.
Dr. Tanisha Ingleton, Moderator and Director Principal, National College for Educational Leadership. Honorable Favour Williams, Minister of Education, Youth and Information. Honorable Robert Nesta Morgan, State Minister, Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Dr. Grace McLean, Acting Permanent Secretary, Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Mrs. Maureen Dwyer, Chair, NCEL's Steering Committee. Dr. Kassan Troop, Acting Chief Education Officer, Ministry of Education, Youth and Information. Members of the ministry's senior management team and other officials of the ministry, its departments and agencies. Reverend Father Craig Mears, Assistant Clergy, St. Andrew Parish Church. Mr. Jasford Gabriel, President of the Jamaica Teachers Association. Dr. Marcia Rainford, Director, School of Education, UWI-Mona. Awardees, specially invited guests, the NCEL team, or viewers online, I greet you well. Today marks a very important milestone in the lives of a resilient set of aspirant school leaders. Many were the battles that were fought in our quest to reach this point, but we did not fight alone. We had numerous persons in our corner, and to them we owe a debt of gratitude. At this, the culminating activity of our journey, I am delighted to be given the opportunity to express special thanks to all who have made the occasion the awe-inspiring experience that it has been. To the keynote speaker, Minister Favour Williams, I thank you for reminding us of the enormous responsibilities of the nation's school leaders, who serve not only as instructional leaders, but also as CEOs who preside over multi-million-dollar budgets and various stakeholder groups that must buy into our vision so that they can assist in the effective execution of our schools guided by school improvement plans. Dr. Grace McLean, the COVID-19 pandemic, despite its challenges, has definitely provided opportunities in education, as you mentioned. We will use those opportunities to further enhance our schools as we become effective future principals. Dr. Tanisha Ingleton, I thank you on behalf of my colleagues for believing in us and for inspiring us to be exceptional future principals and reminding us of the importance of striving for excellence as change agents in our schools. You also effectively led the NCEL team that served us so graciously. I am sure that my colleagues will agree that the NCEL team walked every mile of the journey with us and ensured that we were briefed at regular intervals. Most importantly, they guided us commendably through our field experience that in most cases had to be restructured by virtue of the COVID-19 pandemic. Indeed, you have created a set of world-class educational leaders. In saying thanks, how could we forget our facilitators? Dr. Neville Ying and Mr. Robert Gregory, we thank you for exposing us to the several leadership attributes and conversational competencies that are needed to secure the buy-in of our boards, staff, the parent-teachers body, the past students body, and most importantly, our students and local community groups. We are now equipped to effect transformational changes in the nation's schools. Professor Disraeli Hutton and Mrs. Winsome Francis, we thank you for equipping us as chief instructional leaders who will closely monitor the trends in performance data of our students. Certainly, we will be using that data to inform appropriate interventions aimed at improving student performance. Mr. Michael Roof and Dr. Lawrence Nicholson, you reminded us consistently that the principal plays an important role as the organizational leader, with overall responsibility for the management of the physical facilities and, most importantly, for ensuring that the financial resources of the government are managed and expended, guided by appropriate policy documents. Many thanks to you. Dr. Ann Crick and Dr. Canute Thompson, we thank you for always reminding us to strive for a culture that promotes teamwork within our schools and to craft a detailed change management plan to eliminate existing cultural behaviors that threaten accountability and divide stakeholders. We also thank you, Mona, for the continued collaboration with the NCEL and the Jamaica Teachers Association for seeing the value to endorse and support the work of the college. We thank the technical team for their assistance in the streaming of this ceremony. To our family members and cooperating schools, none of this would have been possible without you. We say thank you for being the silent engines on our journey through this program. To all our friends and well-wishers, although I do not know you by name, we have felt your presence throughout the journey. We thank you for your support and for being with us today. Lastly, I thank my fellow graduates for being dear friends, family, classmates, and helpmates. We have worked together, overcome obstacles together, and we are here today to celebrate. Your commitment and dedication must be applauded, but I must remind you that we have only just begun. Psalm 107 verse 1 declares, "O give thanks to the Lord, for he is good, for his mercy endures forever." We have been the recipients of the goodness of the Almighty, and to him we owe our lives. let us all remember that with God as our guide, we can from this day onward move decisively to fulfill our purpose in this ever-challenging and ever-changing world. May God bless you and thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gavin Derisio, for your vote of thanks. I would like to add that the strength of the National College for Educational Leadership is the strength of its team. The team led by Mr. Kerif Clark, Ms. Monique Kelly, and Mr. Troy McKitty has done an exemplary job in getting this graduation together. I want to take this opportunity to thank Dr. Cheryl McClocking for managing this team, Ms. Sherika Wilson, and all the members of the National College for Educational Leadership for all that you do on top of what you do. We are the excellent team that we are because of the qualities you possess.
Eternal Father, bless our land, guide us with thy mighty hand, keep us free from evil powers, be our life through countless hours, to our leaders, great defenders, grant true wisdom from above. Justice fruit be ours forever, Jamaica land we love. Jamaica, Jamaica, Jamaica land we love. Teach us true respect for all, stir response to duty's call, strengthen us the weak to cherish, give us visions lest we perish, knowledge sent us, Heavenly Father, grant true wisdom